Spotless Swan, the most beautiful, precious, and pure feather in the world. Sticky, choking darkness plugs her nose and throat. It's disgusting, but she cannot even throw up. This is the only thing Alba can feel right now. It's as though she is drowning in a huge swamp, unable to breathe or move. Roars slam into her ears, accompanied by the nauseating sounds of chewing. They are ELIDs. These are not the usual ELID creatures, but human base infected surging toward her like a flood. Alba has never seen such a variety of ELIDs before. Yet, the monsters before her eyes take all kinds of forms. Some look like beasts, others resemble insects, still more appear human, but all of them radiate the same terrifying presence. Their claws can easily rend a doll's armor, and so Alba fights back with all her might, her gun spewing fire and bringing down one ELID after another. However, more ELIDs rush up to meet her, as though they were endless. Alba can feel her bullets hitting them, even smell the charred odor in the air. However, these monsters appear to know no fatigue or pain. There are far, far too many of them. A powerful sense of helplessness fills Alba's neural cloud, a profound realization that nothing she does matters, driving her to lower her gun. At the sound of a sharp rebuke behind her, her frame shudders as she frantically reloads and starts shooting once again. Angge emerges from behind her cover, and it is then that Alba sees her fully. Her hair is tied up, and she is barking orders while firing her gun. In other words, she is just the same as she used to be. After emptying her last magazine, she throws her weapon at the oncoming tide before punching Alba on the shoulder and yelling at her. Angge retreats and Alba immediately follows her. Angge pulls out a detonator and tosses it to Alba. The ELID horde has already swamped their previous position. Alba presses the detonator without hesitation, and an explosion erupts. A wave of searing heat washes over her from behind and sends the surrounding sand and dust flying. At this point, Alba finally sees that this is an old train station, and Angge is leading her deeper inside it. Angge and Alba run over to the platform. Rail lines extend as far as her eyes can see in either direction, but there are no train carriages within the station. The place where the train should be is instead full of monsters, their eyes filled with savagery. They emit low growls as they slowly begin to close in. Alba looks down at her weapon. All she has left is the final magazine that's already loaded into her rifle. Meanwhile, Angge pulls out the MP443 at her waist and her combat knife before smiling bitterly at Alba. Countless ELIDs flood the train station, but the train Angge is talking about does not arrive. Alba mounts her bayonet and lays into the ELID horde with all her might. Disgusting fluids and limbs fly through the air as she stabs and slashes them while her bayonet gleams coldly. Where is the rest of Task Force Defh? Why are not they here to protect Angge? That's right, how is Angge doing? Alba suddenly thinks back to the one person who requires the most protection in this desperate situation. She tries to call Angge's name, but she is unable to project a sound. It's certainly not for any lack of trying, but any vocalization she can manage is drowned out by the thunderous roars of the ELID horde. Her throat feels dry and painful, as though someone is strangling her. The only thing that leaves her mouth is a weak expulsion of air. She desperately opens her mouth, but all she manages to do is inhale more of the choking air. She sees Angge. Angge is standing close by, facing away from her as she struggles valiantly against the ELIDs. It's as though she cannot see Alba. Her gun spews flame as she pulls the trigger without stopping, bringing down one ELID after another. However, there are simply too many ELIDs. They're like an endless tide, wave after wave, washing in with no end in sight. Several ELIDs have already fallen around Angelia, but even more ELIDs are already lunging at her. One of them pounces from behind, its sharp claws seeking her exposed back. Angelia nimbly evades it, but another ELID charges her from the side. She opens fire and kills that ELID, but even more rush up and surround her. Angelia's movements begin to slow down and the gun in her hand locks open on an empty chamber. For all her strength of will and extensive training, she is ultimately only a human being. Her body bears several wounds and fresh blood oozes from them. Alba wants to rush over, but the ELIDs have already surrounded her as well, to the point where she cannot even take a step forward. All she can do is watch the horde swallow up Angie, powerless to help. This powerlessness is very familiar. A huge ELID throws itself at Angie and knocks her to the ground. Alba reflexively reaches for the gun at her waist, but her hand finds nothing. At almost the same time, she sees Angie's pistol on the ground. It is the MP443 that has accompanied her for 10 years. Angie tries to struggle to her feet, but the LID's sharp claws have already pierced deep into her body. Crimson blood stains her clothes instantly. This is a more visceral and shocking sight compared to how electronic components are exposed when a dull synthetic skin is torn open. Angie collapses to the ground, still struggling weakly. Alba can also see that she is looking at her. While her eyes are filled with pain and a refusal to accept her fate, there is no fear or despair there. Her lips are moving slightly, as though she is trying to tell Alba something. However, Alba cannot make out what she is trying to say. All she can hear are the howls and roars of the monsters. Suddenly, Angelia pounds the ground and all the surrounding sounds vanish, as though Alba had gone deaf all of a sudden. The fallen Angelia suddenly kicks away the ELID attacking her and shouts at Alba. In a world of silence, her voice is clear and almost deafening.
Notte!
Sound suddenly returns to the world. The ELID's howls pierce the silence first, then the urgent blare of a train horn as it thunders into the station. She can also hear a machine gun firing from behind her. The ELIDs around her collapse to the ground. Of course you are here. Wait, why does she have a name? What? If Ober... In other case, her name should be Embla. Why Nadia though? Okay. The doll with the machine gun winks, but her weapon never stops firing, cutting down one mob of ELIDs after another. Her smile is as mysterious as Alba remembers, but after learning the full truth, she realizes that there is something else behind the mystery. After laying down a torrent of ferocious firepower, RPK-16's light machine gun finally falls silent. She is out of ammunition.
ほら、列車に乗らないと。列車。
All Alba feels is a stabbing pain in her neural cloud. It's as though she's forgotten something very important. The train's brakes shriek as they engage, and it slowly grinds to a halt amidst a spray of sparks. Then the door to its cabin suddenly flies open, as though it were waiting for someone. Alba opens her mouth to ask what is going on, but she doesn't get the chance to say anything, because RPK-16, still smiling, suddenly raises her hand and shoves her onto the train.
愛する娘よ。どうか元気で。
The force of the show sends Alba rolling over the floor of the cabin. The door immediately closes and the train begins to move. Alba rushes over to the door and pounds on it. Through the glass, she sees the doll who calls herself Embla, thank you, walking slowly toward Angelia. Meanwhile, more and more LIDs rush toward them, and soon they are buried beneath a tide of corpses. No matter how Alba shifts herself, she cannot see them. It's foggy again. Oh, you're going solo again, Alba. Thank you to the friend who let me borrow Alba. Alright, go for it.
タクティカルモード起動。 リミッター解除。最大火力。
Do you not go all the way?
リミッター解除。最大火力。タクティカルモード起動。
Alba suddenly snaps awake. Her originally blurred vision begins to focus. Her frame's functions quickly recover, and the scenery before her gradually focuses into a cold white expanse. She's lying in a half-sealed capsule, and the cables used to assault her neural cloud are still connected to her access ports. This place is cramped. She is surrounded by icy cold metal on all sides, covered in a complex array of wiring and indicator lights. Her body is bound to a chair. She is unable to move except for some small head movements. The capsule is filled with a quiet hum. Upon closer listening, it turns out to be the running noise of various pieces of equipment, which makes her feel anxious and uneasy. A wave of dizziness washes over Alba, and she even feels a phantom pain of severed limbs as simulated nociception signals assault her neural cloud. The signals feel incredibly real, so real that she is actually experiencing a sense of weightlessness, as though her body no longer belongs to her. They have force-activated all her biosynthetic sensory feedback links, so her experience during this enhanced interrogation session is as close to a human's as possible. She even experienced that ordeal in level 2 as a human being would. All this manages to disorient even the present Alba. Her neural cloud is slow and chaotic, like she's been forcibly subjected to excessive input. It takes her nearly 20 seconds before she can come to her senses and start thinking again. The outer offensive barriers of her neural cloud have been broken. The opposition is now flooding her level 2 layer with huge amounts of sensory data, simulating human-level torture-induced suffering in a final attempt to overwhelm her operating logic. They are also attempting to override Alba's original cognitive processes with large quantities of phantom signals, aiming to force her defensive systems to self-destruct. However, these attacks have not been effective, and Alba thus woke from her nightmare. Alba falls silent. Had she awoken from that nightmare because of Pangelia, or was it because of her? As she peers through the observation port of the neural capsule, Alba can see the spacious lab where she had been just a while ago. The researchers in white are working on the lab instruments and recording data. They don't seem to have noticed that she's woken up. Alba frowns because she sees Igla standing in the middle of the lab. She doesn't know how long she's been unconscious. After all, there is no way to judge the passing of time in level 2, and her internal chronometer doesn't work anymore. Perhaps Igla is still here because she was only shut down for 2 minutes. Or maybe it's been a full day and Igla had already left and returned. This is by no means an unimportant matter. While Alba is pondering this, she suddenly notices a human soldier rushing in from outside the lab. His outfit looks very similar to the armed troops she fought earlier. There is an anxious, frightened look on his face, and his forehead is covered in sweat. Despite his evident panic, he walks and carries himself like a proper soldier. However, it's still obvious that he's forcing it. Alba can tell that he's wounded, even from a distance. Igla maintains her calm bearing even after seeing her subordinate's condition. She turns slowly, her eyebrows slightly furrowed as she studies the guard. The guard gulps. His throat shifts visibly as he swallows, but he does not answer Igla's question right away. Igla's frown deepens. A flicker of unease passes through her eyes, as though she already knows his news is not good.
AK-15 が封鎖区域を突破したのですか？それとも何者かが下水道に侵入しましたか？
いえ、あの人形は未だ捜索中です。
More sweat beads on the guard's forehead. He knows that no matter how hard he tries, there is no avoiding what's coming next. Igla's gaze is gentle but still terrifying. He takes a deep breath and finally manages to work up the courage to speak. But before he can even finish explaining why he is here, hearing that key praise causes Igla to instantly lose her composure. Fueled by a rare savagery, she seizes the man by the collar and lifts him off the ground. The man frantically tries to explain himself, like he's pleading for his life. Igla's face goes pale. She lets go of the man. He drops to the ground amidst a fit of coughing. She forces herself to stay calm, but the anger and worry in her eyes is obvious to anyone. The guard doesn't dare to raise his head or look at Igla's face. He opens his mouth as though he is about to speak, but he doesn't manage to utter anything beyond nonsensical syllables. He's heard rumors about Igla. Just as the guard is teetering on the verge of panic, Igla suddenly reaches for the pistol at her waist. It looks like it's been custom made, and its gold-plated body shimmers with a faint blue light. She raises it with a blank expression on her face, so fast that the guard cannot even react to it. By the time the guard realizes what's going on, all he can do is close his eyes in resignation and despair. However, Igla defies everyone's expectations by turning and taking him at Chilobeg, who's spinning lazily in her chair. She pulls the trigger. A fireball erupts from the gun's muzzle. Its primitive black powder propellant belches a thick gun smoke cloud. Chilobeg's face disintegrates into crimson mist, the massive impact sending her entire body crashing to the ground. She doesn't even manage to cry out. Her fingers twitch slightly, and then she goes limp. Foul-smelling blood oozes from the hole in her head and makes a huge stain on the ground. The guard's eyes go wide as he covers his mouth, desperately fighting the urge to scream. It's not that he hasn't seen dead people before. In fact, he's personally created many corpses in the line of duty. But right now, he is terrified beyond the capacity for rational thought. Alba observes all this with a blank look on her face. Igla's actions are ruthless and decisive, but not surprising. Alba has already seen through Igla's true nature from the start. After Chilobake collapses, the marionette dolls milling around the lab, indistinguishable from human beings, all start to collapse lifelessly one after the other. Meanwhile, a device on the other side of the lab suddenly comes to life. It looks like the sleep capsule Alba is currently occupying. Its silver-colored exterior and hatch gleam with a dazzling light. There is a burst of noise as machinery runs and gears engage, and then the capsule's hatch slowly opens, emitting a cloud of white vapor. A naked woman steps out of it, within whiz up what looks like some sort of refrigerant gas as it evaporates. She casually reaches for a lab coat from a nearby peg and throws it on. With her entrance, the collapsed researchers who look like puppets with their strings cut all begin to slowly get back up. They appear as though they had been recalled to life, and carry on with their tasks like nothing had happened. The woman from the capsule sighs heavily, but her tone is theatrical and mocking. Her hair is damp and her face is oily, like someone spread a layer of butter on it. But it's plain to see that she looks identical to the Chilobake who's lying dead on the ground. As she says this, she snaps her fingers like she's performing a magic trick. In response to her signal, several researchers like the one who cleaned up the coffee spill before promptly appear from a corner of a lab. They begin clearing away the corpse and blood stains. Their movements are swift and practiced, as though they have rehearsed this countless times before, or maybe they've had to perform this procedure innumerable times before. After carrying the corpse away, mopping up the blood and rewaxing the floor, everything is back to how it originally was. It is as though nothing had ever happened. The guard scrambles out of the lab, as if granted a stay of execution. After watching the guard scramble away, Igla turns to regard the brand new Chilobake.
何度も強調する必要はないかと思いましたが、あなたを買いかぶりすぎたようです。もう一度言います。あなたの下劣な計画に協力しているのはジラードグループ。ひいてはお嬢様の利益のためです。
覚えてるに決まってるじゃん。それにそんなのどうでもいいっつうの。いきなり人のこと撃っちゃってさ、何も解決しないよ。怖い怖い。だからオルフェルーネにも文句言われてるんじゃない？
A wisp of smoke calls up from the barrel of Igla's gun as she takes aim at Chilobake again. Its muzzle is trained squarely on Chilobake's head, and she looks like she might fire again at any time. However, Chilobake doesn't seem the least bit afraid of her. All she does is shrug in mock innocence as madness twinkles in her eyes. So this was why she could appear again like nothing had happened even after committing suicide. Chilobake follows the gaze back towards his source and realizes that Alba is awake. She bats her eyelashes and opens her mouth in a parody of surprise, then tosses off a wink while smiling with a twisted playfulness. Alba coolly meets her gaze. Resurrection, is it? What a disgusting technology. Igla narrows her eyes and studies Chilobake. She takes note of the latter's antics, but she doesn't seem to care about them.
私が研究所を後にして30分弱で襲われた。偶然にしてはできすぎていると思いませんか？
そういう予想できないことが偶然でしょ？私たちの出会いも含めてね。
Chilobake turns in place like a kid, her lab coat flaring out in the air around her.
反逆への尋問のためにと私をここへ呼び出したのはあなたです。
そうだっけ。最近物忘れがひどくてね。
Chilubeg affects a look of vexation, and then she throws herself back into her chair and kicks her legs like a child.
でも私なら八つ当たりするより今すぐオルフェルーネのとこに戻るかな。無事だとしてもきっと心細いと思うよ。襲撃も一度で終わるとは限らないしね。
Igla's face turns pale and a momentary panic flashes through her eyes. Then she adjusts her jacket, holsters her gun, and her movements regain the usual smoothness.
お嬢様にもしものことがあれば、あなたはもう二度と復活することはないでしょう。チルロビフ様。
Her voice is calm again, but the chilling threat she utters is more terrifying than any shout could ever be. She shoots one last icy look at Chilubeg before turning to leave. She doesn't bother with affecting elegance. Her priority is returning to Orpelune and the lab post haste. Her footsteps fade into the distance and vanish. All that remains in her wake is gun smoke and the stench of blood.
ほっと余裕ないんだからねえ。
After Igla leaves, Chilubeg jumps out of her chair. She spins around happily like she's putting on a show in his lab which only has marionette dolls in it. Alba knows Chilubeg is talking to her. However, she has no intention of replying. Chilubeg skips over to Alba's hibernation capsule. The hem of her lab coat drags on the ground, and her bare feet makes a paddling sound as she moves. Like a curious child, she taps the observation window and cranes her head to peer at Alba inside the capsule.
まさか途中で意識が戻るなんて。あんたのメンタル想像より強いな。
She looks at Alba in amusement, her eyes twinkling like she's appreciating a precious work of art or a beloved toy.
普通の人形だったら3秒もすればメンタルがメルトダウンしちゃうのに。それをあんたは自力で抜け出しちゃうんだから。実はさ、イグラよりあんたの方が第三世代人形っぽいと思うんだよね。
Alba looks at the NATO researcher before her. Her heart is filled with revulsion and weariness. She has no idea what this woman is up to.
ホルログ財団の連中は揃いも揃ってボンクラだらけ。性能だけやたら重視してメンタルは個体を追うごとに稚拙になっていくばかり。強さが第三世代人形をたらしめる要素なら最初の第三世代人形は RO635 じゃなくて AK-15 になるはずだよね。
She even knows raw.
イグラはあの戦車ばかり気にかけてるけど反逆正体で一番貴重なサンプルはむしろあんたなんだよね。サマンサ将はやっぱ天才だよ。生涯の大半を軍事産業に費やしてきたのにいざ人形に転向したらあのパンドラとあんたを作っちゃうんだから。あの才能が羨ましいや。
Chilubeg heaves a theatrical sigh, her face falling into gloom before brightening suddenly with a huge smile.
でもどんな天才でも死んだら終わり。最後まで生き残った者だけが勝つんだよ。
She indicates herself with her right thumb. Despite her beaming smile, there is a frigid edge to it.
あの天才たちほどの頭脳はなくても私は真理に触れるまで生きる。あんたはそのための布石だよ、アルバちゃん。
Chilubake bares her teeth in a grin as she knocks on the observation window, like she was rapping on a pet's fish bowl.
さて
Rapping.
続けようか。大丈夫。今回はちゃんと意識が戻らないようにするから。あんたのメンタルに隠されたもの全部掘り起こしてあげるからね。
Saying so, she saunters over to the control panel in front of the hibernation capsule, shoves away the marionette doll working there, and begins operating the instrumentation herself. The capsule emits a low hum in response to Chilubake's manipulations, and Alba feels her mind to go blurry again. Darkness envelops her once more. The last thing she sees before she passes out is Chilubake's playful, excited expression. And then she plunges into darkness. But this time, she does not know if she will be awakened again.